Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The main hall of the Manhattan Conference Center was filled with influential figures from the worlds of finance and entrepreneurship. Spotlights illuminated focused faces, cameras scrutinized every gesture, and the air crackled with excitement and ambition. Lindsay Carter, dressed in a sleek navy suit, stood behind the lectern, her hands trembling slightly. She had prepared this presentation for months. Every word, every chart, every technological demonstration had been rehearsed endlessly. However, just as she began to outline her innovative startup project, a sharp laugh interrupted her speech. Michael Green, an investor known for his brutal frankness and jealousy of influential women, had stood up, his eyes flashing. "Are you sure about what you're saying, Lindsay?" he snapped, his voice echoing throughout the room. "After all, everyone knows your career was never truly deserved. You always had special assistants, didn't you?" A murmur rippled through the assembly. Lindsay felt her heart race, a searing heat flooding her cheeks. Every word was a dagger, every glance a silent judgment. She felt panic rising, but she tried to respond calmly. "My work speaks for itself," she began, but her voice betrayed her hesitation. Michael Green sneered and continued, emphasizing each word to further humiliate Lindsay in front of all her colleagues and investors. The atmosphere grew tense, and Lindsay felt her world crumble. She could already picture the headlines: "A female entrepreneur publicly humiliated, total failure." Then a deep, authoritative voice rang out from behind her. Everyone turned their heads. Ethan Williams, her husband, who had been sitting discreetly in the back, stepped forward. His upright posture and determined gaze silenced the entire room. "Lindsay Carter deserves everyone's respect here. And to clarify one point, I am Ethan Williams, President of the United States." A shock rippled through the room. Murmurs turned to exclamations, cameras flashed, and Michael Green paled, unable to utter a single word. Lindsay, frozen, felt a mixture of astonishment, gratitude, and relief. Tears welled in her eyes. She had never imagined that Ethan, so quiet and unassuming, would intervene like this, revealing his true identity to protect her. As Ethan placed his hand on her shoulder, Lindsay felt a wave of security and pride wash over her. She understood that, despite the humiliation, she had just crossed a threshold. This day marked not only the end of a humiliating attack, but also the beginning of a new strength within her. A strength that even the most critical eyes could no longer shake. The prologue ends with this image: Lindsay, standing with shining eyes, surrounded by whispers and camera flashes, feeling for the first time that the world had just discovered the real Lindsay Carter, a strong, respected woman, now protected by the man she loved. Lindsay Carter felt like she was walking a tightrope. Every step she took on stage seemed to weigh a ton. The room, filled with hundreds of investors, journalists, and entrepreneurs, was silent, but each of their glances weighed on her like an invisible judgment. Michael Green, sitting in the front row, gave her sharp looks and sarcastic smiles. He seemed to take a cruel pleasure in unsettling her. "Really, Lindsay," he said, rising slowly, his hands clasped behind his back. "Everything you say is fascinating, but how can we be sure it's not just hot air? After all, some people have a knack for getting noticed rather than actually accomplishing anything." Lindsay felt her heart race, a burning heat flooding her face. Michael's words echoed in her head, reminding her of times past when she had to prove she deserved her place. She took a deep breath, gripping the lectern tightly. "My project is the result of several years of research and constant effort. I can assure you that the results speak for themselves." Her voice trembled slightly, but she put all her determination into it. Michael chuckled, a cold sound that made Lindsay shudder. "Results? You're talking about figures we haven't even seen yet? You know, some talents are more about image than substance." At that moment, the tension became palpable. The murmurs of the audience turned into inquisitive whispers. Lindsay felt a wave of shame and anger rising within her. She had worked hard to get here, and now Michael Green was trying to reduce her journey to a mere facade. Suddenly, a deep, authoritative voice crossed the room. Lindsay Carter deserves everyone's respect here. All eyes turned to Ethan Williams. He rose from the back of the room, his straight and imposing posture stopping everyone in their tracks. Lindsay felt her heart leap, surprise and gratitude mingling with her lingering fear. And to clarify one point, Ethan continued, his firm voice resonating like a thunderclap, I am Ethan Williams, President of the United States. A deathly silence fell. Cameras clicked, murmurs turned into shocked exclamations. Michael Green paled, unable to find a single line. Lindsay, frozen, felt tears welling up. She had been humiliated, but this unexpected gesture saved her in a way she could never have imagined. Ethan stepped towards her and gently placed his hand on her shoulder. No one has the right to diminish you, Lindsay. You know that now. Lindsay took a deep breath, a mixture of relief and pride flooding her body. For the first time since Michael's attack, she felt that her dignity, talent, and courage were recognized and protected. As the room gradually returned to its usual commotion, Lindsay stood tall, her gaze clear and determined. This moment marked the end of her humiliation and the beginning of a new chapter in her life, a chapter where she would never again face the judgments of the world alone. The camera flashes had barely stopped when Lindsay found herself surrounded by journalists and cameras. Michael Green's words still echoed in her head, but Ethan's revelation had changed everything. She was no longer simply a woman publicly humiliated, she was the president's wife, and her husband had chosen to defend her publicly. In the elevator taking them back to their private suite after the conference, Lindsay took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. Ethan, beside her, watched the television screens broadcasting every moment. Lindsay, look at this, he murmured, pointing to a screen where a reporter was commenting on the incident. You're everywhere, but look how you shine. They're talking about your courage, your competence. Lindsay looked away, embarrassed by all the attention. I don't know if I can handle all this. Everyone's going to be talking about me, but not about my work. They're going to think I only exist because of you. Ethan placed his hand on hers, a reassuring gesture. Listen to me carefully, Lindsay. No one has ever diminished your merit. What I did was to protect the one I love, not to overshadow you. You worked hard, you built your project with your own hands. Today, everyone finally sees it. In the days that followed, Lindsay was inundated with invitations to interviews, conferences, and talk shows. Every word spoken about her seemed to be scrutinized and analyzed. Yet, with Ethan by her side, she began to feel a new strength within her, a confidence that didn't depend on her reputation or the judgments of others. One evening, while they were dining alone in their elegant Manhattan apartment, Lindsay confessed. I never realized how afraid I was of failure and of what others thought. Today, everyone saw me, and I feel vulnerable. Ethan looked at her tenderly. Vulnerability isn't a weakness, Lindsay. It's what makes you real. Today, you proved you can face the world, even under pressure. And I'll always be there, but know that you no longer need me to defend you. Lindsay felt a warmth wash over her. For the first time in a long time, she felt a balance between her career and her personal life. The fear of humiliation had given way to a burgeoning confidence, and with Ethan, she knew she could face any obstacle. A few days later, Michael Green tried to reignite the criticism on social media. Lindsay calmly read the messages, then closed her computer. Ethan, seeing her gesture, smiled. You see? You're already stronger than him. And this time, the whole world knows it. Lindsay leaned over Ethan and whispered. Thank you, not just for defending me, but for showing me that I could be strong on my own. That evening, as the city glittered through the large windows of their apartment, Lindsay realized that the public humiliation hadn't destroyed her life. On the contrary, it had transformed it. She had found not only a protective and loving husband, but also an inner strength that no criticism could ever shake. A few weeks after the incident, Lindsay Carter was standing in front of an audience again. This time, it was the Global Innovation Summit, an international gathering of entrepreneurs and investors from around the world. The air was thick with excitement and skepticism. Lindsay knew Michael Green would likely be there, and the mere thought of his arrogant face sent a shiver down her spine. But she was no longer the same woman. The critical stares and mocking whispers of the previous conference had forged a new confidence within her. Her hands, once trembling, were now calm and determined on the lectern. Every word she uttered exuded confidence and mastery. Michael Green, sitting in the front row, watched her with a mixture of contempt and nervousness. He had tried to prepare his remarks to attack her subtly, but Lindsay, anticipating each attack, had prepared precise and irrefutable answers. "Ladies and gentlemen," Lindsay began, her voice clear and composed, "this project is not just an innovative idea. It is the result of several years of research, perseverance, and failure. Every obstacle we faced was a lesson that made us stronger." The murmur in the room gradually turned into an admiring silence. Investors were taking notes, impressed by the clarity and precision of his remarks. Michael Green tried to interrupt him. "Do you really think this plan can succeed?" "The numbers." Lindsay looked him straight in the eyes, her expression calm but determined. "The numbers speak for themselves. But I believe that what matters most is not just theory, but action and conviction. And that is exactly what we have demonstrated." A murmur of approval rippled through the room. Michael Green felt the failure of his attack for the first time. Lindsay had transformed his perceived weakness into a dazzling strength. At the end of her presentation, the applause was loud and enthusiastic. Several investors crowded around to congratulate her and propose collaborations. Lindsay smiled inwardly, feeling a newfound pride. She had not only proven her competence, but she had also taken control of her own narrative. After the conference, Ethan joined her backstage. His face expressed pride and admiration. "You were incredible. Not just brilliant, but invincible." Lindsay smiled, feeling her lips stretch in a mixture of gratitude and triumph. "I think I'm no longer afraid of him, or anyone else. And you shouldn't. You have the strength, the intelligence, and the resilience to face anyone. I'm proud of you, but most of all, I'm proud that it's you." That day marked a turning point for Lindsay. The woman who had been publicly humiliated just weeks before had now transformed that experience into a shining display of competence, confidence, and dignity. She knew her husband would always be there to protect her, but she no longer needed that protection to shine. She had become a force that no criticism could ever extinguish. As evening fell on Manhattan, Lindsay and Ethan walked side by side through the illuminated streets. The city lights reflected Lindsay's smile. She understood that this moment symbolized much more than a professional triumph, it was the victory of her newfound confidence and independence. Several months had passed since the humiliating incident. Lindsay Carter was no longer the same woman. The World Conference, her brilliant speeches, and the public recognition had transformed her reputation. She was no longer just the president's wife or the one publicly humiliated, she was Lindsay Carter, a respected and influential businesswoman. That evening, an official gala brought together world leaders, investors, and innovators. Lindsay, dressed in an elegant emerald gown, stood beside Ethan. Every glance she received seemed to gauge her stature and determination. The murmurs of the guests testified to the admiration she had inspired. Michael Green, who had tried to discredit her a few weeks earlier, watched her from afar, unable to hide his astonishment and silent respect. Lindsay felt a thrill of satisfaction. She had not only survived the humiliation, but she had emerged stronger and more confident. Ethan placed his hand on her waist and whispered in her ear. "Today, you no longer need me to defend you. But I will always be there, by your side." Lindsay smiled, feeling the warmth of his love and the security of his support. She understood that the power she now held came not only from her position or her husband, but from her inner strength, her perseverance, and her ability to transform adversity into triumph. As they walked down the dance floor for the gala's closing ceremony, Lindsay recalled the dark days when Michael Green's humiliating words seemed to define her. She had transformed that pain into a driving force to excel, a strength to rise again, and a light to inspire. Ethan looked her in the eyes and said, "You have overcome humiliation, fear, and judgment, and look at yourself now. You are invincible. Lindsay shook his hand and replied. And you showed me that even in the face of all this, love and support can give us the strength to overcome anything. In that moment, surrounded by light, admiring glances and whispers of praise, Lindsay understood that her story was not just that of a woman humiliated in public, but that of a woman who had chosen to rise again, to shine and to conquer the world in her own way. The evening continued, but Lindsay was no longer afraid of the spotlight or judgment. She had found her voice, her power, and her love, and nothing and no one could shake her now. The world had just discovered the real Lindsay Carter, strong, confident, resilient, and invincible.